Donald Trump's administration has just delivered a breakthrough in peace talks. Ukraine has accepted a 30-day ceasefire proposed by the US following talks in Saudi Arabia. Zelensky says that Ukraine accepts this proposal, we consider it a positive, and we are ready to take such a step. Now, critically, the US has resumed sending military aid to Ukraine and has resumed intelligence sharing. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio says that the ball is now in Russia's court and the ceasefire would start the moment that Moscow agrees to it.
Today, we made an offer that the Ukrainians have accepted, which is to enter into a ceasefire and into immediate negotiations to end this conflict in a way that's enduring and sustainable and accounts for their interests, their security, their ability to prosper as a nation. I want to personally we both want to thank the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, His Majesty, for hosting us, for making this possible. They've been instrumental in this process, and we're very grateful to them for hosting us here today. And hopefully we'll take this offer now to the Russians. And we hope that they'll say yes, to peace. The ball is now in their court. And but again, the president's objective here is, number one, above everything else, he wants the war to end. And I think today Ukraine has taken a concrete step in that regard. We hope the Russians will reciprocate.
Now, Donald Trump has promised to speak to Vladimir Putin about the proposal, which could happen any day now. And Trump's administration deserves full credit for this development. It is a step forward towards peace after more than 3 years of war, a step that the Biden administration and the EU never got close to. Now, the media has been so busy slamming Donald Trump for being mean, labelling him a bully for kicking out Zelensky after that disastrous meeting with Trump and JD Vance after a blow-up, which if you watch the entire press conference, you'll see that Zelensky started. But Trump's tough negotiating tactics, well, they seem to be having an effect.
But very importantly, and I said it, Ukraine, ceasefire. Ukraine, ceasefire. Just agreed to a little while ago. Now we have to go to Russia and hopefully President Putin will agree to that also, and we can get this show on the road. We can get this horrible war where 2,000-3,000 soldiers a week, every week, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 sometimes. I get the reports, and they're not American soldiers. They're Ukrainian and they're Russian. But people are being killed outside of that. People are being killed in the cities as things explode throughout the cities. And we want to get that war over with. So I think it's a very big, I think it's a big difference between the last visit you saw at the Oval Office and this. So that's a total ceasefire. Ukraine has agreed to it, and hopefully Russia will agree to it. We're going to meet with them later on today and tomorrow, and hopefully we'll be able to wipe out a deal. But I think the ceasefire is very important. If we can get Russia to do it, that'll be great. If we can't, we just keep going on and people are going to get killed. Lots of people.
UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer says, "I warmly welcome the agreement today and congratulate President Trump and President Zelensky for this remarkable breakthrough. This is an important moment for peace in Ukraine." Professor Joe Siracusa joined Power Hour for his analysis on the meeting between US and Ukrainian officials in Saudi Arabia.
Well, look, the meeting is all about preparing the endgame for the Ukraine war. I mean, the Trump administration is determined to bring Zelensky to the table. They've already put enormous pressure on this fellow by cutting off his arms and then temporarily pausing his intelligence, without which he really can't work very well on the battlefield. And intelligence is now coming back in a big hurry. I don't even think President Trump is particularly interested in the minerals deal as first thing. What he wants to do is get Zelensky to agree to a ceasefire. Now, after the ceasefire, then Zelensky has to commit, like President Putin, to a diplomatic solution. So Trump doesn't care how long the negotiations go on, but in the first instance, he wants a ceasefire. I mean, that's what he's determined to do, and that stops the killing, fulfills all of his campaign promises, and then he's able to concentrate on other things. And as you know, this morning, President Trump has a lot of other things to concentrate on.
It's easier said than done. What's your assessment of how this has played out so far? It's incredibly difficult getting Zelensky on board, and then he's also got to deal with Putin. There are indications that Putin wants an end to the war, but we don't know that for sure.
Well, I saw this movie before in the 1960s and the early 70s when the United States was determined to leave South Vietnam and force the South Vietnamese to accept the North Vietnamese offer, or the term offers, after extensive negotiations in Paris. And whether the South Vietnamese wanted to participate or not, no, it didn't make any difference. The United States was going home. And so this is what it's all about. It's about getting the ceasefire on a piece of paper for the president to be able to say he stopped the killing there, and that would be a very good day's work. He said yesterday, interestingly, that he thought the most important problem in the world today is controlling the nuclear arms race. Well, you know, he gets high marks for that because it is very, very important. At the end of the day, the United States and the former Soviet Union, Russia, have most of the nuclear weapons in the world, and one bad exchange of these weapons could be the end of this planet. So, you know, in that sense, the president probably has his priorities right. But look, it isn't going to be that hard. Zelensky's out of cards. You know, he's out of options. He's got a bad option and a worse option. You know,
that's true. Do you think he's realized that now?
Oh, I think he's realized that for the last 6 months. I mean, he must have been sleepless when he saw that President Trump was on the verge of winning that election. I mean, because it was all going to change as soon as Biden left. I mean, yeah. Biden wanted to kick this problem into the weeds until after the election because he didn't want to talk about who lost the war in Ukraine, which is, of course, is an American pastime about who lost this war and who lost that war. It becomes political. But look, Zelensky has no options left. I mean, I think he'll agree to a ceasefire, and not too far along now, I think he will probably step down and make room for other people. I mean, there are people behind him who want to lead. Right. And what I think is sad is I think he could have got most of these terms 3.5 years ago. Well, nearly 3.5 years ago, and you know, and he's going to have to take what he gets now. And look, these wars do not have happy endings. There are no neat conclusions to a war. I mean, all the civil wars in the world leave a lot of loose ends out there, as you know, we'll probably get around to Syria. And these things are not happy, and it makes very, very unpleasant television because we can see what's going on behind the scenes. But Zelensky only has one thing to do, and that is how to figure out how to agree with the Americans, save his reputation a little bit. And, you know, he's had 3 years in the chair in this war, and I'll tell you what, he's lived, you know, 3 lifetimes. I mean, it's been enormous pressure. He flies all over the world trying to get arms and this thing and the other thing, and it's very sad. Ukraine has lost probably a quarter of its people, have gone overseas. They're taking refuge in nearby countries. A lot of the young men have been killed. I mean, these wars, and you know, I know people talked about the old World War II battle wasn't here anymore. Well, it was the return of artillery, destruction of these cities. And of course, you lose commerce, finance. People lost their education. They lost health services. I mean, nations go backwards for a long time after a war.